here with Anay. Anay, thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Scott. I'm really excited.
I think this is one of our first conversations, really. I mean, we've seen each other around, talked to each other a little bit, but I wanted to sit down and actually talk to you a little bit and get to know you a little bit better. So I'm pumped that, before you graduate, second semester starts today, that we get a chance to formally talk a little bit.
Yeah.
So, Anay, I'd love to hear you talk just a little bit about this year. I mean, your senior year, how it's going so far for you, and some of the things that you're participating in at Gilman.
Sure. So senior year, I mean, this summer, I think I was thinking a lot about my last year at Gilman. I've been here since the third grade. So I guess it's like the 10th year I'm completing. And so, I mean, first semester is really all college stuff. I'm sure anyone will tell you that. So it's really just stressful getting college stuff organized, picking where you want to apply to and all of that. But so I made those decisions pretty early on in the summer. I sort of toured colleges to get an idea. But in the fall, I was in the musical at Bryn Mawr, so that took up a lot of my time. And second semester starts today. So I mean, I talk about it with my friends all the time about how it almost seems like such a blur already, that the first semester's over. But yeah, so Traveling Men is something that I'm a part of, and I sort of lead and also lead Paragon, which is our literary arts magazine. And yeah, just try to keep myself busy around campus, like the Writing Center and Peer Ed. So I
want to talk about all those extracurriculars that you're a part of and your college, I guess, touring experience and application experience, I think will be good. But maybe just more broadly, you seem like the type of guy at Gilman as a senior that just makes things happen. You're involved in a lot of different things. You're super busy. What skills do you think you have that maybe younger guys coming up need to adopt or can adopt to be, you're a pretty successful guy here at Gilman. You got into a great school. It seems like, I don't know you that well, but your grades are awesome. You're involved in a lot of different things. What's your secret sauce? How do you make it happen?
Thank you, first of all. But I don't know. I've just always been I think organization is really the most important thing, especially, and that can make the difference between someone, who gets good grades or bad grades. It's just if you keep track of everything, when you need to do it, how you need to do it. And I'm not the most organized person I know, I will admit that, but I just think if you try to be proactive about it, and make a schedule, have things fit. But also I think the advice to the younger guys, I would say that you're never going to be a part of these things later on when you want to be, for college apps or whatever, just if you don't try it out in the first place. So, I mean, I would just encourage any underclassmen or younger guys to, when you come up to the high school or even the middle school, just start joining things, start being a part of things that you enjoy. I know it's hard to say, don't try to think about what everyone else is thinking, but that's a piece of advice that I wish I had gotten sooner. So I would just start joining things, start being vocal. I mean, that's something that I had to sort of get used to too. I mean, being a part of class discussions and everything, I think that's what really makes a difference to me when I'm looking at someone that I look up to. It's just how do they express themselves, articulate themselves, and what do they do, and how do they do it in a way that they enjoy. So, I mean, that's always what sort of I've tried to do, and that's...
So Traveling Men is one thing that you love to do, and you're a leader in that, is it a club? I guess that organization?
I would say
group.
Performing ensemble. I don't know. It's very... it's a sort of nondescript sort of thing, but we're very involved, as you know.
How'd you get into singing? When did you first start singing?
I guess my first experience that I can remember with singing would be in lower school. So like I said, I came to Gilman in the third grade. I have a very fond memory of my lower school experience here, and the lower school experience really introduced me to things that I pursued to this date. So with singing, Miss Simon, our lower school music teacher in the fourth grade, she told me to audition for Roland Park's upper school musical at the time, which was The Sound of Music. So they needed a bunch of little kids to play the children in that show. And that was the first time where someone pulled me aside and was like, hey, you're good at this. You can maybe try something out with this. And so I did that show. That was such a good experience. And I've been sort of singing ever since in middle school. And I think the community here, the music teachers, Miss Nkeba, Miss Beckman, I think everyone, Mr. Ford, it's just really, they're all really great and encourage you to keep going. So I kept going and auditioned for Traveling Men my freshman year, and yeah, this is my fourth final year.
So I was just talking to Mr. Ford. Are you guys doing a trip for spring break?
Yeah, we're going to Portugal.
That's amazing.
No, it's like I think 50-something kids with the middle school and upper school combined. So it's really exciting. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot.
I went to Italy. The last time we did this trip was like pre-COVID, all of that. So I was in the 8th grade when we did that trip, and yeah, I think it's just a special trip. It's the only trip at Gilman that sort of combines across divisions. And I remember like looking up to a bunch of older guys, Quinn Beagle. I don't know if you're around that graduating class. So Quinn Beagle, Ben Levinson, Matt Martinez, like a bunch of upperclassmen that I sort of form relationships with, and that's like the best part of the trip, I would say.
Yeah, it's super memorable. I went on a trip to Italy I think sophomore summer of college with my entire lacrosse team in college. 55 guys over there, or whatever it was, 50 guys. I mean, you create such close bonds, and you're in a different country. I think traveling with other people in general just brings you closer to them, because definitely. You see them in a new light. So where are you going to go in Portugal?
I know we're going to Lisbon. That's like sort of the main destinations where we get first. But I'm gonna be honest, I have not looked at the itinerary beyond that. But I've known like Miss Beckman puts a lot of work into planning everything out. We have a great tour company that sort of plans everything for us. But they really like walking and sort of touring the city and getting a feel for like the history, the architecture, and that's definitely going to be something I'm looking forward to.
Do you know who you perform in front of? I mean, they probably set a bunch of performances up.
Yeah, I mean, I think we perform, I want to say like once a day, maybe once every other day, but I think it's just to the general public, whoever like wants to come, they try to advertise it as much as they can. And then I think we're doing this thing with a choir in Portugal, so we sort of sing with them, and that's always like a fun experience to sort of sing with other people from Portugal.
That's awesome. Yeah. I've never been a part of a singing group. What is that? What's that like?
I mean, I could say the same thing about like a sports team. I'm not the most athletically inclined, but I mean, I think it's any team in general. I mean, it's the same sort of principles of working together. I think a big thing is sort of finding each other's ticks. Like you spend so much time with each other, you want to make sure that everyone's happy and it's a productive sort of atmosphere. So just knowing each other really well to the point where, especially with music, and same thing for lacrosse, like the mood of the group really impacts your performance. And we sound the best when we're happy, when we're interacting with each other, and we enjoy being up there with each other. So I think the biggest part of Traveling Men to me is really just social, like enjoying each other's company and knowing each other, so that we can perform the best that we can.
How do you guys, when you're behind stage or before you guys go up, like how do you get pumped up for it? I was watching the Australian Open's happening, and someone posted a old video of Rafa Nadal the other day, who I love, but they're like getting ready to come out onto the court, and the guy he was up against was just standing there. He looked super nervous. He was obviously trying to prepare himself to get ready, but Rafa was taking swings and he was jumping up and down. And I think the caption on the tweet was when Rafa won the match before they even got out there. But I think it's interesting, like before you get out on stage, before you start performing, how do you prepare? How do you get ready to go?
Yeah, I'm personally definitely the nervous guy who's kind of just like, okay, we got to make sure everything's all right. But luckily we have other people in the group that sort of balance that out. Curtis Lawson is just such a fun energy. He goes around, fist bumps everyone, and just like pats him on the back. James Stevenson is another sort of like personality that just brings like a sense of humor. So I think just talking to each other, making sure, obviously make sure that we know everything's good to go, but just making sure that we're not nervous. And I think the biggest thing, especially with what we've been working on this year, is just interacting on stage together, because not only is that going to make a better experience for us and make us sound better, but also we want to make sure that people watching know that we are enjoying this. We don't want to look miserable on stage. So we actually did like a Mr. Ford, when we performed for the upper school at the beginning of the year, Mr. Ford has to do like a little film review of our performance to like see how we're acting on stage, and you can definitely see points where like gazing off into space, like looking at nothing or whatever.
Wow, you guys watch film on your...
we've done it once, but yeah, I think...
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's a performance, and like anything else, you just want to make sure that you're performing. I think that's something that I forget, a lot of people forget. You're so concerned with the sound, you maybe not concerned with how you're appearing on stage.
I think of that. I mean, that's definitely true when I watch a performance like you guys. When you're smiling, when you seem like you're having fun, it just is contagious. And I think about that a lot in teaching. When I come into the classroom, how my mood, my mentality, and teaching really is a performance too. You know, you've got to get a group of people excited for the book, and that's not always natural. Like, why do you want to read a book? It's Tuesday morning after a long weekend, and now we're starting a new book. I got to get you guys ready to go.
Yeah.
I've got to be energized and pumped up and almost sell you on it.
Yeah,
so,
you set the tone.
Yeah.
If you're not excited about it, then the students aren't going to be.
Yeah. But yeah, I've loved when you guys have performed in front of people this year. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's different than having a speaker and having announcements. There's a lot of energy to it, which
thank you.
I'm sure you almost thrive off of as an a cappella group.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, like you said, that's what an a cappella group is: energy and just fun on stage. And I've been trying to get us to perform more in public. Like, because of COVID, a lot of our performances were sort of like the gigs that we usually have were either virtual or just like didn't happen anymore. So this is really the first year that we're out there gigging, sort of like normal, I want to say. And like the more performances, the better we're getting, the more comfortable getting with each other. So
that's the thing about COVID is that I think, it impeded a lot of different industries in the world, but I think music is one of them because performers are used to being in person. Like when they had those live streaming concerts, no one really wants to sit on their couch and watch a concert. Are you a big music fan outside of your a cappella group?
People always are shocked when I say this, but no, I don't really have any like music apps like a Spotify or Apple Music. Like I don't have any accounts. And every time I say this, people's like jaw drops because it's such like a thing in today's society to like, listen to music 24/7. I'm definitely a music enjoyer. Like I listen to the radio and like stuff like that. But I've always described it as like it's too much pressure for me to like go on Spotify and like pick songs that I like and like pick a playlist that I like and pick a band. Like I don't know if call it laziness or call it like just anxiety about that, but I love like listening to my friends' recommendations and stuff, but I've never been one to like sort of make sort of like a music curation for myself.
Interesting.
And I prefer to like when I drive I listen to the radio, but other than that, like when I'm doing homework or painting or something, like I just like to work in silence, honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
So when you're painting, you don't have any background noises going on?
No, not at home. I mean, the art room has a playlist going, big speaker in the art room, and that's always a fun
Does that
vibe,
distract you, or?
I don't say distract. Another thing about me is that obviously I sing. So when someone's like when a song's playing and I know the song, I'm going to sing along. So that might distract me in a little bit. But at home, honestly, like just silence works for me better. I don't know.
Wow, that's pretty rare. I mean, I've been running and working out without music recently, which I find more peaceful. And I don't know, I don't want to have the ear pods in my ears at all times.
Yeah.
I used to walk around with those things on, and yeah, it's great in the morning when you're trying to get a little lift with some music, but I kind of want to be here at Gilman accessible to people. When I see someone walking towards me with their ear pods on, I don't know if they're on the phone. I don't know if their music is turned up. I don't know if I should really say anything to them if they want to be alone. It's just kind of a weird social dynamic when those things are in.
Yeah, I mean, I have AirPods and I barely use them, but I totally know what you're saying.
Yeah, they probably should be banned on campus, but I guess you can't really do that.
They try. I mean, I see kids in assembly with like earpods in and stuff, and Mr. Smith just like snaps at them or something. But yeah, I definitely know what you're saying.
Yeah, especially if you have long hair, you just put them in, and but
you never know.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just don't really love those things. I like the cord headphones a little bit better.
Old fashioned.
Yeah,
I know.
But I like to play some music in class too, because I think when you're writing, not too many lyrics, but just kind of a nice melody to get yourself situated is nice for people. But that is surprising. You know.
I know. It is surprising. It surprises me sometimes. It's like you'd think I'd like, really be into music and stuff. But I mean, I keep up with things as much as I can. And if music's playing, I'm not going to like ask someone to turn it off. I'm not, I won't do that. But when it comes to myself, I've never really been into it.
How about concerts?
No, same thing with concerts. I mean, like we went to a Paul McCartney concert at the Orioles Stadium this summer with my parents because that's what they wanted to go. But other than that, not a big concert guy either.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Cool. The a cappella man who...
I know, who doesn't go to concert to listen to music. It's ironic.
Tell me a little bit about painting. So I saw you a bunch in the art room the past couple of weeks. I was working on something in there. Where'd you get started? What are your practices in the art room?
Yeah.
What do you like so much about it?
So I'll start from the beginning, I guess. My mom is really into art. So my mom growing up was always into art. And when my parents moved to the States, my mom went to MICA, got a certification at MICA, and sort of always has been involved in graphic design, calligraphy, it's just artistic things. And I think that some of that was, my mom likes to joke that when she was in those classes, she was pregnant with me. So she likes to joke that I learned more of the material than she did. But I've always, at an early age, been interested in art and just sort of a visual person at an early age. And my mom encouraged that, being an artist herself. And yeah, when I got to Gilman, I mean, lower school art's kind of just like arts and crafts, from at least my experience. But the middle school, Mr. Anderson, I think is such a good, such a strong and good person to have in the middle school, and he really drives a lot of that age group sort of interest in the arts. And yeah, middle school sort of when I realized that this is something that I would want to pursue later on, and I enjoy doing it, and I have a knack for it. So when I got to the upper school, I knew I wanted to take art with Mr. Connolly, and I think the Gilman Art Program is just so special, especially in the upper school. When I was a little kid, I remember walking around the halls in the Lumen Center and seeing those giant paintings on the walls. And when people told me that they were student paintings, I was like, that's crazy.
Right.
That's insane. So I always knew that I wanted to have a painting up there when I was in the upper school. That was sort of my dream, walking through the halls as a little kid. But yeah, so I mean, the Gilman Art Program I think is just so special in the sense that it's tough. I think that's the biggest thing about it. You wouldn't necessarily think that arts would be a tough academic class, but it has been consistently my toughest academic class in the upper school, because Mr. Connolly is just, he's not afraid to tell it how it is. And I think that's what makes artists in the art room really strong at Gilman, because they know their weaknesses and they know sort of what to correct, because everyone's just so open with each other. And even the friend dynamic, my two best friends paint with me in the art room, so that has definitely strengthened our friendship, just talking about each other's art. And I think it's just something, the room itself, I think it's just a beautiful space to be in, definitely the best room on campus, I would say. But yeah, my process, I mean, I've always been interested in portraiture and figure, so painting people, and that's sort of what I focused on last year for my AP portfolio, and sort of what I'm trying to continue with this year in terms of a senior thesis. Just painting faces and painting people, I think, has always sort of come naturally to me, and there's something interesting that I find about just observing another person in the space and capturing that in an artistic medium.
Now, do you take pictures of people in your life to paint, or how do you decide on your material?
Yeah, so I either take pictures of people, or I look through sort of my camera roll, pictures that I have of my friends, my family, sometimes strangers. Sometimes that's freeing to just paint strangers, because there's no pressure that you don't know the person.
That's true. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I used to be really into caricature art and drawing people's faces, and I still am. I mean, I just haven't been drawing as much as I used to. But my nickname in college was Big Cat, so I had this Instagram page of Big Cat caricatures where I draw my friends, people in my life, and I don't know, you show somebody their caricature, and if it's not flattering or if it's not what they think they look like, I like the idea of drawing a stranger.
Yeah, strangers are nice because there's no, like you said, there's no pressure for it to look like them or whatever. You just practice the skills and get better without any sort of outside perception on it.
So let me ask you about Carl Connolly's art program. And
yeah,
I don't really know. I'm in there working every so often, but I don't really know what it's like when you first walk in there as a freshman and then you get to senior year. And it seems like he can really make a student kind of blossom over those 4 years in terms of their ability. Do you think that's true? Could you just walk into an art room as a freshman at Gilman, and by senior year, if you stick with it, if you do the work, if you try hard, be a really good artist by the time you graduate?
I would say it's half and half. I think, so freshman year, anyone can take art. It's just an elective that you can sign up for. And so I remember our grade, I want to say we had like 30, 35 kids across 2 sections our freshman year, which is now whittled down to 6 our senior year. So that just tells you sort of like how much it really just gets less and less. But freshman year, it's really an introductory course to like the basics of drawing and basics of Mr. Connolly likes to describe art as like the practice of seeing. So it's just he's teaching you how to see in front of you and capture what you see on paper in front of you. So the first semester is really drawing, charcoal, still life studies from life, and the best way to learn art is like still life studies in front of you, like not starting with pictures. So he's big on drawing from life. And then we do like a mini perspective unit, so learning just like the basics of perspective and like interiors and exteriors with rulers and like, pencils, like architecture almost.
I need help with that.
Oh yeah, it was honestly one of my favorite units that we did freshman year, because I was like, I'm really like a precise sort of person. You have to be really precise with all that. So that was something I really enjoyed. And then second semester you start painting. He starts you off with acrylic, and then you move pretty quickly to oil. And sophomore year is really just a revisitation of all those skills. You start drawing again, you start painting again, just making sure you remember everything you learned last year. And then junior year is really where you get the most creative freedom in terms of what you want to do, how you want to do it. Junior year, most people do an AP portfolio. It's not an AP class in terms of like Gilman's curriculum, but you can submit an AP portfolio based on your work that you've done junior year. You have like a concentration and a thesis. You write about it, what you want to do, how you want to do it. And then at the end of the year, you can submit that to the College Board. And the senior year is sort of the same thing, an evolution of like what you want to focus on and more freedom. You have the back studio space, of course. But to answer your question, I think like Mr. Connolly, what he does so well is, like I said, he's honest with you, and he creates this sort of environment of not necessarily of like, if you try it, you can do it, but like almost you have to try it, you have to sort of put in the effort, you have to be punctual with your homework assignments, you have to really pay attention in class. He's a big no-no on earbuds in class too. But I think just freshman year really dwindles down because people who realize that art's not an easy class, like I did this class to get an easy A or whatever, like they realize that that's not the case, and so the numbers definitely cut from there. But I would say people that stick with it are the ones that enjoy it. Maybe not necessarily, like you said, you don't have to be like an amazing artist and start off. Mr. Connolly will get you there. He'll develop those skills for you, but it's really on you to sort of express that this is something you're willing to put work into, because it's a big time commitment too. I mean,
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like on top of all your other classes, you can devote as much time as humanly possible to art.
Yeah, exactly. And we have 2 homeworks. So the way the homeworks work is we have 2 submissions due every 2 weeks. So a classwork simultaneously with a homework. And so you're making 2 paintings every 2 weeks. It adds up. And like definitely, like you said, you can work for hours and hours. Like there's no really end point to a painting or something like that. So a lot of people realize that the workload's like a lot. And so that's a reason that they drop. Or another thing is you have to maintain a certain grade to keep going. So you have to have a 90 or above in the class.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's another
thing. If you have
thing.
a B, you're done?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
It's harsh. I know.
Cutthroat.
So
do you have a workspace? Do you have a studio at your house that you do your homework?
Yeah, luckily enough, my parents sort of set up this entire art studio in one of the rooms in our house. So I have it gets beautiful sunlight. I think it's really important to have nice light in there. I have like a back wall with like a bunch of stuff tacked up and an easel and everything. So I spent a lot of my time in there. Yeah, super cool.
That's awesome. So are there certain artists, and this might be a tough question, that you look to for inspiration? Because when I was painting the last couple of weeks, Mr. Connolly was like, you've got to have some
reference artists
to look at their brushwork and look at the details and how they see a landscape. I'd never done a landscape before, and he was showing me, some examples of that and giving me some artists. But when you do portraits, do you look for certain artists to try to mimic?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's another thing that Mr. Connolly does really well, is he lets you know that, like your student you're learning, there's going to be sort of artists that have already sort of done what you're trying to do, and the best way to learn from that is to just physically have their work up next to you. So he's a big on printing stuff out for you and like having it next to whatever you're working on, just so you can see it. But yeah, every time I started painting, I look online for references. Right now, I'm trying to base my work off of There's this artist Emilio Vilabla. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I just found him online and sort of really liked his work. Mr. Connolly is really good at suggesting artists and sort of past students of his, and so I'm sure you've got some Jeffrey Reed for your landscapes.
Yep, you saw that.
Yeah, I know when I'm not a landscape guy personally, but when I sort of was trying landscapes and doing them, that was a big thing for me, especially with landscapes, just getting a sense of how brushwork works and like how the background looks compared to the foreground and what colors they use. And yeah, I think it's really important. And I have a collection actually of little, so what he does every time he wants to give you a reference artist, he like rips a corner off like a page and like Sharpies on it. So I have like a bunch of those. I collect them in my room because I think it's really funny.
Yeah. So in the hallway is your most recent work, right? Can you talk a little bit about the inspiration for that one and what that process was like for you painting that?
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe we'll put this image in.
Oh yeah, it'd be awesome.
The video.
But so like I said, I've been trying to focus on portraiture this year, and I've been sort of like, I mean, personally, like I feel like nothing before this painting that I had made was sort of gelling with me, or just like I feel like I was just painting to get these submissions done. So winter break, I really took a time to reset. I think that's really helpful, especially just like, I was winter break, I started this painting and I had sort of had a clear vision going in. But it's a self-portrait of me, but there's sort of like different angles of myself interspersed throughout there and like sort of like a transparent effect going on. And I think that was just something that I wanted to try, like the concept of like obscurity in a face, or just sort of the reference artists that I was looking at, all played with a sense of sort of distortion or, like I said, obscurity within like the features of the face. Or so I know that I want to sort of continue in that direction in terms of warping something or just playing with like how it looks. But this is also sort of like one of the bigger canvases that I've worked on. Like I said, the art's a huge time commitment, so the bigger the painting, the more time it's going to be, and sometimes you just don't have enough time to work on bigger canvases. But I knew I had the time, so I chose to work a little larger. And so that I think just allows you more freedom, honestly. Like when it's small, you get so caught up in the details, but when it's bigger in front of you, you can take a step back and sort of not worry about how every little detail looks. And that's personally with me, like my journey in art has been, I think, entirely about that. I've always been like super perfectionist and like all the details need to be like 100% accurate. And that's Mr. Collins really helped me with sort of becoming looser and freer with like my work and like the way I paint it, because I think the work emulates the process as well. Like if you're painting it like super up close and like just like scrutinizing every little detail, then that's going to come across in the painting, and it's going to have sort of devoid of life. It's not going to have that sort of energy that you have maybe when you're being looser. So I tried to be a lot looser with this painting in terms of like colors next to each other and the brush work. So hopefully if you can see that a little up close. But
yeah, I was actually thinking about that a lot when I was working on the landscape, because I was focusing a lot on the detail and the color and getting the colors right, and I was painting some trees, getting the branches exactly right and the little needles coming out of the trees, and it was too minuscule. When I looked at Jeffrey Reed's work, he simply had brush strokes, and that was it. That was the tree. And it looked great from a distance. So I think you also have to think when you're painting, and I could be wrong here, but you're painting very close to the canvas. When someone's looking at it, they're looking from at least 10 feet away.
That's a big piece of advice Mr. Connolly gives, is to like every 10 minutes or so, just step back from your work, step back at it from a perspective that a viewer is going to look at it from. You're not going to be looking at, like you said, that closely, and people aren't going to have that same eye that you're going to have towards your own work. And Mr. Connolly, like another thing, like you said, you can see the brush strokes. Mr. Connolly's big on letting paint be paint. Like you have to sort of wrestle with the fact that what you're painting is, the paint itself is a physical object. Like you can't magically turn a painting into like an image that you're trying to replicate. It's always going to be paint on a canvas. So the sort of sooner you embrace that fact, I think the more your work flourishes.
Love it. So I'm still getting to know you a little bit, and I know art is a big passion for you, but maybe this question will help us get into some other areas of conversation, maybe outside of Gilman. But if you had a free Saturday, nothing on the schedule, I figure you'd spend some time painting in your studio. But what are some other things that you would do? Nothing to do. You've got all the options in the world.
Yeah.
You've got a full day. What are some things that you like to do outside of painting?
I would say some days are definitely just like in my bed on Netflix. I'm watching the new season of Survivor right now.
My friend's watching that too. Isn't Survivor an old
Yeah,
show?
it's. I think they still make new seasons, but it's pretty old, and Netflix sort of just puts up an old season once in a while. So I think the one I'm watching right now is from 2018, but that's super entertaining and can definitely start a binge. But other than that, like I love making plans with friends, just going out. Like I think a good brunch or like a good dinner with someone is invaluable. I think the conversations you have like over a meal with someone are super interesting, and I don't know, it's just like a interesting vibe. Trying out new places to eat around. Hamden or whatnot.
Any favorites around Baltimore area?
I would say the Corner Pantry is one that's like right nearby, and my friend Lewis works there, so that's something that frequent of ours. But honestly, any place in Hamden's. Polly G's is a good pizza place that I went to this weekend. Ekibon, another like good chicken place in Hamden. But I think like Baltimore's great. We have a bunch of places to try out. So I'd say getting a meal with a friend. Any movie that's new, like on any streaming service, I like to keep up with sort of like the new movies that are out. Or I love going to the movie theater too. A lot of people aren't a big fan of going to the movies. Like I feel like I ask my friends a lot if they want to go to this movie with me. They're like, no, I hate the movie theater.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like, I'm a big fan of the movie theater.
I feel like the movie theater's kind of dying out now with the
streaming services. Yeah, I mean, I personally think we're seeing a revival. I think there are some movies like Avatar, the new Avatar movie. I just
How was that?
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think like also just the hype of it being, I want to say like 13 years. I don't know how long it's been since the first one, but yeah, I love going to the movies, and I think it's such a cool experience.
The best movie I saw in theaters was Interstellar in 3D in like not 3D, but IMAX in 2014 or something. And I don't even want to watch that movie again because it will ruin that memory for me. That was just, I don't even remember what the movie was about. I just remember it blew me away.
Yeah.
Put things into perspective, and it was wild.
No.
Cool. Well, yeah, Survivor. Interesting.
I know the social dynamics of that game is like the most. I mean, it's a social game. There's obviously a physical aspect where you have to come sort of win these challenges and tasks and everything, but you really got to navigate around a social scene and sort of know the players around you and
know the personalities.
Yeah, personalities. Be willing to manipulate is a big thing. Get on people's good sides, get on people's bad sides.
It's a great idea for a show.
Yeah, it really is. I think it's just entertaining to watch. People just love watching.
I used to watch Fear Factor. You ever see that?
Is that where they do like dares and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. It's similar to Survivor, but it's instead of, I don't know, doing a race or I don't even know. I haven't seen Survivor in a while, but it's like eat this, bowl of jellyfish innards or something disgusting, and then jump from this building. And it's things that people are terrified to do, but you win if you accomplish all of them.
Yeah, that would not be my show of choice
to
participate in or watch. Like, I feel like that would just gross me out. But yeah, shows like that are so interesting, and I think they're guilty pleasures, honestly, and that most people enjoy watching.
Yeah. So in addition to watching movies and shows, you seem like a big reader too.
Ooh, I'd like to challenge you on that.
No?
not the biggest reader. I would like to be a bigger reader. I think the reason I feel like any free time that I have, I sort of end up painting or end up sort of working on sort of art and stuff. So I'd love to be a bigger reader. It's something my friends are always encouraging me to do, but the books in school I love reading. But I try starting books like outside of school sometimes on the weekend, and I don't have the attention span for it sometimes. But yeah, I mean, to be well read is like everything, so hopefully that changes for me soon.
Well, it's tough to be disciplined about your art and a book at the same time. It's a lot of focusing in on something. But you did bring Beloved today.
I did.
And
yeah,
I'd love to just hear you talk about why that was your choice.
Yeah, so Beloved by Toni Morrison, it's just, so this is a novel that I read last year in my English class at Bryn Mawr. So I had my Cornet class at Bryn Mawr last year for English with Dr. Waters. And I thought that was one of the best English classes I've ever had. I mean, every class at Gilman I've had, our English department at Gilman is amazing. But just like that new experience at Bryn Mawr was really interesting to have. And I thought I got really lucky with the class that really gelled with each other, and vocal discussions and people just shared like really complex thoughts, like stuff that I would never think about. So that class experience was great for me, and it's part of the reason why I brought the book, not only because I think it's like just an amazing novel, but it reminds me of sort of the discussions and stuff that we had in that class, and how interesting they were. So Beloved by Toni Morrison, it's about protagonist is Setha. She is a slave that escapes, and they live in Ohio, but 18 years after she escapes, she sort of still is grappling with the torments and like deep trauma of being enslaved. And another sort of major plot point revolves around her daughter, Beloved, which is what the novel is named after, but her baby daughter died when she was really young. And this ghost of her daughter, sort of demon, ghost, whatever you want to call it, comes back and sort of visits her. And it's at its core, it's about a story about motherhood and sort of the traumas of motherhood and like sort of the sacrifices a mother has to make, intersecting with the traumas of slavery. And so I just really enjoyed reading this novel, really enjoyed discussing it with people in my class.
How did Dr. Waters, I guess, set up that class? Because I'm reading the book The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead in my English classes now, and similarly, it's a book about slavery, and it's a book about a enslaved girl named Cora who escapes to the North. It's a little bit different because it's, I guess, similar with the ghost aspect of Beloved. It's sort of fantastical in some ways. Like, it's not exactly historical.
Okay.
It's historical fiction, so I think Colson Whitehead throws in some magical realism. Like the Underground Railroad, for instance, is an actual train underground in this book. But today was the first day, new semester, where I set that up in class and tried to teach about it. I'm just curious what Dr. Waters did in your class in particular that made it so memorable for you.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of like how she introduced the text, but I just remember watching like sort of some interview clips with Toni Morrison herself, describing this novel and describing sort of like who she wrote it for and like what the story is about and sort of the perception of it. So we watched a bunch of interview clips. I think that sort of we read articles about the novel itself, like from a third party describing like sort of the perception of the novel, its context in history. But another thing that she did, I think, was keep sort of the aspect of mystery in this novel. It's like, it's not a full mystery, but there are definitely some elements of suspense that she tried to keep and just let us sort of figure out for ourselves. That was a big thing. It was pretty like a self-directed sort of exploration of this novel. Just let us read it and sort of grapple with like the very real and issues and sort of problems in this novel. And if anyone had a question about like, anything logistically or something's context in history, like we would have a discussion about it. But yeah, it from what I remember, it was very self-directed and sort of discussion-led. Yeah,
I like that a lot. I was talking today about how you learn about slavery in history class, and you learn the facts, you learn the details. You might learn some firsthand accounts about what slavery was like in the United States, but I don't think there's anything like a book where you actually empathize with a character, get to know a character, feel for a character, and almost endure the psychological experience with that character. It's a little bit deeper of a emotion that's triggered than when you're studying just the facts of history.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, the way she's written this novel, you gain such like a personal interiority to these characters that like you can't even begin, obviously, to understand everything that they went through, but you just feel that much attached to them, like you said.
I'm trying to also have my classes watch a movie about slavery too, just to get like a full replication of that period in time, so that they can fully understand, to the best of their ability, what this was like, and just make it almost a three-dimensional learning experience for them. So one of the movies that I have on the list is a pretty horrific movie that I watched a couple weeks ago, Emancipation with Will Smith, that just came out on Apple TV, I think. But it's set in black and white. It's filmed in black and white, and it's about an escaped slave. And, it's a pretty hard movie to watch, but I think that's part of the point of it, is that this is a very difficult and traumatic period in American history that kind of need to think about and understand as best as we can.
Yeah.
So
I think placing it in historical context is like the best thing to do, and answers questions that you might have throughout the text, but also adds a new layer to sort of what these characters are dealing with. So I think that, yeah, I think that's awesome.
I think it's a great choice, Beloved. I read that book in college, and I think a lot of it's a difficult book. A lot of it went over my head.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, I mean, I've annotated my book sort of like the way I think like a high school student would, like, oh, teacher's going to check these annotations. But this was sort of the first book that I annotated like thoughtfully, I think. And I have, like, you can see like these little tabs on the sides here and stuff. So, but yeah, just like so many connections that I found the way she's written it. And I was talking to Mr. Hastings. I took Ulysses this last semester now, but sort of like how the writing styles are sort of similar in the sense that things are arranged in this perspective of you gain access to sort of these thoughts the more you read, and sort of arranged backwards almost. But yeah, I think just that the beauty of reading it was like such a cool experience for me, finding like symbolism and other things that we talked about in class, that this was like one that I didn't mind taking like the extra 20 minutes to annotate thoroughly.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. From what I remember of Beloved, it's like free indirect style. A lot of the thoughts just appear, and you have to. There's no indication that it's somebody's thoughts. You
Yeah,
have to
exactly.
put that together in your own annotation, your own mind.
Yeah. Yeah, free indirect discourses, chapters that are written like in different styles, sort of similar to Ulysses again. A lot of themes that you really go over your head, went over my head, like when we were talking about it in class. But yeah, I think annotation, I mean, this is to your point as an English teacher, like annotate your books. It's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And you'll get more out of the novel.
What was Ulysses like reading that in class?
It was an experience for sure. I think I definitely gained like so much appreciation for the novel itself and sort of the making of the novel. The biggest, I think, thing that I enjoyed about that class was learning about how James Joyce wrote this novel, and sort of like everything is so meticulously planned out. Like, and Mr. Hastings showed us like schemas that of like the itinerary of this day. So Ulysses takes place over one day, and I'm sure like Mr. Hastings and you've talked about this, but everything is so like a timetable of every minute of every second of this day is planned out, where he's going to be, like who he's talking to, keeping track of like I want to say like almost 100 characters. So I think you gain when you first read it, it's like, oh, this is a chore. Like there's so many things to keep track of, and like I don't know what I'm doing, and everything's written in a style that I can't understand. But the more you read about it, the more you learn about it, you like really grow to appreciate the things that I feel like you can't understand. It's like I read it, I didn't understand it, but I know that it means something. I know that it was like very thoughtfully placed in there, and so I'm going to keep going and not let it taint my perspective of like how much I'm enjoying this novel.
Was it a slog the first time around reading it? I mean, I remember reading it in college, and I was in the middle of lacrosse season at that point, and I was like, this is just so much for me to do right now. It would take you I mean, I walk by Mr. Hastings' office, and he has it on his desk every single day, reading it, rereading it, writing about it, teaching about it.
He's reread it like so many times. I don't know how he does it. But definitely the first couple chapters, I think, were a learning curve. Mr. Hastings introduces the course with two other texts by Joyce that I think help prime the novel a little bit. But the narrative styles change like every page, and like you were talking about with Beloved, the thoughts sort of just appear on the page without any introduction. So you have to decipher what's thought, what's narration, what's sort of like a third, maybe arranger voice of this like narrator. So yeah, there's a lot, and like the community is so like things are not figured out about this novel to this day. Like things are debated over, things are contested. So I think, yeah, like it was just definitely the first couple chapters were tough.
Did you read his guide to Ulysses in class as well?
Yeah, simultaneously. So how I read it, and like I talked to him about it, like how he wants us to use the guide. But before a reading of a chapter, I just sort of read his guide. It sets up the plot, I think, was one thing. Like I just want to know what's going on in terms of plot. And then sets up sort of the different narrative styles and how to read it, how to go about it. And there's some humor in there, so that's always fun. Keeps it lighthearted. But yeah, sort of just to prime up the chapter. I didn't want to like rely on it too much, just so I could have like sort of my own experience reading the novel. But yeah, still haven't finished it. We didn't get through all of it, so I'm hoping either this semester I'm a little more free to sort of catch up on the parts that we skipped over and finish the novel, because I think, I would waste that experience if I didn't. So
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I was telling you when we walked in together, I think one of the coolest things ever was going to Shakespeare and Company this past summer and seeing Ulysses, the original, and then Patrick Hastings' guide in the window. I mean,
it's super cool. I know.
It's amazing.
He's talking at the Library of Congress later this week, which is amazing. He gave us a little preview of his speech, and just him talking about like how it's all gone full circle for him is super cool.
Yeah, I think if you could take that class with Patrick, I mean,
you got to.
Anyone, you will never have an experience like that again. You may be somebody in college, but I don't know, no one like Patrick Hastings who wrote the guide.
I know.
Literally wrote the guide, so that's pretty cool. You got to take that class.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this semester too.
So thinking about your time at Gilman, last 4 years, like what are some of the best things about Gilman in your mind? Whether it's classes, community activities, things about the school, teachers, things that you just have really enjoyed your time here.
The first thing that comes to mind is obviously the people. I think not only the teachers, but your like fellow students and like the lunch staff and like people at the front desk, like literally every single person that's a part of this community. It's just so thoughtful of everyone around them. I think like that's one thing that Gilman does really well is like it teaches you to be aware of the people around you. Mr. Smythe always says to say hey in the hallways, but even stuff like that, I think coming here, it makes you feel less isolated, less sort of like it reminds you that you're part of this like sort of bigger community. I think another thing that Gilman does really well is it values its sort of resources, and I think like the art program is a really good example. Like things are really prioritized in a sense like that in the music programs and stuff. So and everyone really cares about like what they're doing. You don't have one teacher that like is resentfully teaching this class, or you don't have like a student that maybe a certain day they're like, oh, I don't want to come to class, but in the large scheme of things, everyone wants to be here. And I think that's a big part of this community. It's like everyone's like awareness and sort of thoughtfulness of what they're doing at all times.
Were you a freshman or an 8th grade when COVID hit?
Freshman.
You were a freshman, so you missed all of freshman year, or the last half of freshman year.
Last half, yeah.
And all of sophomore year?
Feels like it, yeah.
Pretty much?
Pretty much. I think all of sophomore year was hybrid. I think we maybe got to a point where we were all coming in like cohorts, whatever, but I try not to think about it too much.
And then I feel like some of last year we had masks on at least.
Yeah, definitely for the first half of the year, I think.
So, I don't know, from your perspective, what was that like having so much of your high school experience almost eaten up with COVID, and then coming back for your senior year and being like almost freed in a sense to enjoy your classes and get the full community impact that Gilman offers? I
mean, like it's so hard to sort of think about like, what would have happened differently or whatnot. So it really just put things into perspective, and I think it created this level of gratitude for Gilman and gratitude for like the community, because when we came back, all of us were ready to come back and ready to sort of be a part of the school, like have our last senior year at the school. So I think it, for me personally, just like helped me to realize that like every day of being here, sort of enjoy being here. And because there was a point where like you couldn't come into school, you couldn't hang out with your friends, you couldn't talk to people in the hallways. So I feel like the little things like that are much more enjoyable, and like just put everything into perspective for me.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the day that we heard that we weren't going to come back, and it was so shocking. It was very quick. We had just played a lacrosse game, and the athletic directors came out and said, yeah, you guys need to take all your stuff and go home. We don't know. Yeah. And then from there on, it was just like, I think that was March 23rd or whatever, and the rest of the year was shot. Yeah,
we were in the middle of a musical freshman year that was like in the midst of rehearsals and stuff, and we were like, oh yeah, coming back after spring break, like we're gonna have a show. But
yeah, it's right before spring break.
Yeah, right before spring break. I think the 12th, I want to say March 12th. But yeah, like such a dystopian sort of day to live, one that will go down in history for sure.
Yeah, I think I learned about this term in psychology class in college called flashbulb memory, maybe, and it's basically where there's something that happens in your life that you'll never forget exactly what you're doing at that time. So for a lot of people, it's 9/11. For some people, it's JFK's assassination. I think I think you will never forget finding out that you're going home and like have to be on lockdown during COVID-19.
Yeah, definitely. I like you said, I remember where I was, like how I heard about it. So yeah, but I mean, I'm just glad to be back for senior year in the most normal way possible. And like I said, I'm just trying to enjoy everything because I honestly has felt like a blur up to this point with the first semester. So I'm hoping to just like take every day at a time. My friends and I are really big on that too. Just like reminding each other about that. And,
Yeah.
You know,
So tell me a little bit about Brown and how that all panned out for you, and maybe the first time you went there, why Brown, what it was like getting in.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of some background on your college admission.
Yeah, I think so. I started really thinking about college. I mean, the college counseling office obviously at the end of junior year sort of sets you up with answering questions, just like getting almost to know yourself and what you would want in a college. And this summer my family and I sort of went up the East Coast and toured a bunch of colleges up the East Coast. And the big thing for me, I think, when I stepped on the Browns campus was just sort of the atmosphere of the city and then like College Hill and the atmosphere of the people. For me, I knew location was a big thing in terms of making a decision for myself. I didn't want to be like in the middle of nowhere, and I didn't want to be in like the busiest city in the world. So finding that balance of like a sort of classic college lifestyle with the green and everything, but also a city to go to you know, have fun and explore. That was a big thing for me. Obviously, Providence is not the biggest city in the world, but it's still, I think, a super cool city. And yeah, so location was a big thing. Another thing was when you go on these college tours, like you'll start hearing the same thing over and over again of what they're trying to advertise. And Brown really focused, I think, on the people and sort of the collaborative atmosphere of Brown. I think that's something that was emphasized more than other schools that I visited, was how everyone here works together for your success, and it's not competitive. I mean, it is competitive, but it's not like everyone's out to get you. And I think that was one thing that struck with me and sort of reminded me of Gilman. Like, I knew that's something that, I mean, I've been going to school here for like 10 years, so escaping the vibe of Gilman was something that was going to be hard for me. So finding a place where I felt like the values of Gilman and sort of that atmosphere of people working together, people like enjoying each other's company, was really big for me in looking for a school. And so I made the decision to apply early this fall. And throughout that process, you know, Miss Ross was my college counselor. She was amazing. And I also talked to Mac Nichols, who is at Brown right now, and who I knew last year when he was a senior. And he was really helpful in explaining to me sort of like workload and stuff like that. But also the one thing that he said that stuck out to me was he feels like he's going to a school full of superheroes because everyone's like so talented, and like everyone really cares about like the thing that they're doing, and it's so cool to like meet new people and like meet everyone you meet is like super good at like what they do. Yeah. So that was something that stuck out to me, that I was like, oh, that sounds super cool, and that sounds like a place where I would enjoy being. Right. So yeah, I applied early this fall, got in over winter break, and I actually am also applying for Brown's dual degree program with the Rhode Island School of Design. So my portfolio for that program is due today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's something that I'm applying for. I wrote like the extra supplemental and everything, but I'm not totally sure if that's something I wanted to pursue, because it's a 5-year program, and you're getting 2 degrees from 2 schools, so it's like double the amount of credits almost that you have to acquire. So I've been doing research about it. Just trying to see if it's fit for me.
Now, what exactly is that program, and what would you focus on if you were admitted to it?
Sure. So it's a 5-year program at both Brown and Rhode Island School of Design, RISD. Their campuses are like practically on top of each other. RISD is one of the best art schools in the country. And you basically, for the first year you live at RISD, you sort of experience RISD as a freshman as you would if you were just enrolled in RISD. Second year you're at Brown, sort of sophomore at Brown, and the next 3 years are in between both schools. And you earn a BFA from RISD and then a degree in anything from Brown. So the point of the program, and it's 15 people a year, so they accept a little cohort of 15 people
Okay.
that are a part of this program a year, and it's really just specialized, I think. So for me personally, I would probably major in painting at RISD, and then I've been sort of thinking about architecture at Brown, but I think I'm really undecided at Brown just because the curriculum is so open, and I just want to explore all my options first. But for me, I just knew that wherever I was going to go, I wanted to keep pursuing art in any way, shape, or form. So to have this degree where I can sort of continue that passion, but also not like have it be my whole thing, because I think a lot of the times when you turn your passion into sort of a job or like something you need to seek income off of, it can you lose sort of the love of it. So I knew I didn't want to like necessarily go in that direction, but something just have art as a constant still for me. So so I'm applying for that, and we'll see how that turns out. But also, because it is so much work for both degrees, there are certain restrictions on like study abroad opportunities or extracurricular opportunities, or even just the social aspect of living on RISD for the first year and not living on Brown, and vice versa. So
I was thinking that.
Weighing all the options out, talking to some people, and hopefully we make the right decision at the end of it. But it's a super cool opportunity that I wanted to pursue. So
that's awesome. So it seems like if you apply to this, if you put all your stuff in and you end up doing that, you're sort of going all in some ways on painting and that route, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I've as far as I've thought about like a possible career path in the future, I think architecture is definitely one that I've given the most thought to, just because it combines like a lot of the things that I think I enjoy doing, whether that's expressing myself creatively through art, but also just the more logistical side of things. And
right.
I've always enjoyed like a viewer of architecture, like Architectural Digest, and like going abroad and like learning about the architecture, and so it's something that I've always gravitated towards learning about. So and I think a degree in painting would just sort of help the creative foundations that you need for a career in architecture, and that's sort of what I talked about in my Why Brown essay. There's just a bunch of things that I think go into architecture, especially like today, sustainable architecture, and learning about like the history of it, implementing that. And Brown sort of obviously lets you explore all bases and sort of covering the topics that I think are important in terms of like a career in architecture. So it's the most thought I've given to a career option. I don't like to like.
Yeah, it's tough to do that before you actually go to college. But if you're passionate about something, I mean, I couldn't have said the same, even though I loved English going into college. But man, architecture, that's, if you have a mind for that, I mean, I can't even set up the IKEA furniture stuff. If you're good at that, I mean, and you like to do it and it's interesting to you, then you should definitely apply and go in.
Yeah, I've always had the house that we live in right now. We bought and renovated and added on to it. So I feel like I was like, I want to say 10 or 11 when we did that, and that experience was really formative. Like it was like construction and like sort of, I don't know, I was really interested in that. And around the house, I'm like the handyman around the house. Like renovated our basement this summer, and like our family room, and just like an accent wall in our family room or something. So yeah, it's something that I enjoy doing, and like, I don't know, there's something like hands-on about it that I enjoy. So yeah, we'll see how it pans out. I mean, I'm not sort of committing myself to anything yet. But
I'll give you instead of a book recommendation, a show recommendation that you probably have already seen on Netflix called Abstract. And it's a series of different, I guess, artistic skills that they, I guess, follow masters or really proficient professionals as they go about their day, I think. And there's one on design, there's one on painting, there's one on architecture. So it's a mini series on Netflix that I think you'd like, called Abstract.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll check that out.
Yeah. I remember watching that. I have a friend who's really into architecture who's doing a program in Spain right now.
Yeah. It's stuff like that. Like, I mean,
yeah,
I think architecture affords you those opportunities of like travel and,
Yeah, even if you can't go abroad through this program, as you said, you will be able to for sure at some point. So sounds pretty cool. Can I ask you about just your application process to colleges and writing the essays? I know you said that you wrote a little bit about architecture in this particular one, but when you applied to Brown, what did you actually have to submit in terms of materials for application, and would you write your essay?
Sure. So everything sort of through the Common Application. So Common App is how you submit the applications for almost all the schools you're going to apply to. And so the Common App requires one personal statement essay, which is about 650 words, about a page and a little bit. And that essay I started writing over the summer. That's sort of the big one that I think people tell you to get out of the way as soon as possible, just because sort of the one with, like, I guess the most pressure on it, or the one you think of. So this summer I was just brainstorming ideas for that one, and I think the biggest piece of advice that I got, and I would give to someone if starting the college application process, is just to like have a notes app going of just like things that you think of and just write them down. Like, you never know what's going to evolve into a really good idea. And the other biggest piece of advice is whatever you're thinking an admissions officer wants to read, they don't want to read. It's like they've seen everything under the sun in terms of college applications. So something that is specific to you, personal to you, written in a way that's like you're selling yourself, but don't try to sell yourself. Be authentic.
One thing I say when I have students write personal essays is be weird. Like, be weird. It's good. Yeah. I want to read something weird and something bizarre and something that I can't look up online or can't get from ChatGPT or, it's like I want something that's unique and cool and original and you.
So I wrote my Common App essay about my voice change, going through middle school, puberty starts and your voice drops. And that was like not an understatement, a pretty traumatic moment in my life. I just feel like I sang middle school and sort of had like this very high soprano voice, and then all of a sudden over the course of 2 months it just drops all of a sudden, and I don't know, I sort of lost my footing and I like lost confidence, and I was like, you have to learn how to sing again almost.
Wow, I never thought of that.
Yeah, no, it was tough, and I think specifically Miss Beckman always makes fun of me because she's like, in all my years of teaching, you've had the worst voice change I've ever come across. So that's what my Common App essay was about, and sort of navigating that experience, but also in the large scheme of things, becoming comfortable with a change and just becoming comfortable with change in general, and like seeing what new opportunities change opens up for you.
Yeah.
And then Brown requires 3 supplemental essays. So the first one is sort of a why Brown statement, specifically about the open curriculum, how you would use the open curriculum to the best of your needs. And I talked about sort of the intersections that I saw in architecture between environmental sustainability and history and art and painting. And so just cover a bunch of disciplines about how you would explore the open curriculum at Brown. And then the second essay is about sort of a challenging perspective, describe a time that you sort of had a perspective challenged, and how did you react to that, and like how did you have that conversation. So I talked about an experience with my dad that I had, just a cultural difference between my parents, who are immigrants and grew up in India, sort of had a conversation about something, and that sort of conversation, how I reacted and how he reacted, how we had that. Not even like the biggest thing in the world, just like a small, cultural difference that we happened upon, and talking about that. And then the third one is describe something, whether spectacular or mundane, describe something that brings you joy. So I talked about our front yard, our garden in our front yard that I chose to sort of like start a couple of years ago. And like our family is so bad at like keeping things alive. Like, we are the worst like plant family ever. Like, a plant enters our house and it'll die probably in 2 weeks. So our landscape, our landscaping out front wasn't like the best, and so we're the corner house on our street too, and we live in Ruxton, so predominantly white neighborhood. I remember when we moved in, it was kind of like a thing, just like a brown family in this neighborhood, that my dad and my parents in general just had to navigate, and there was some backlash to that, which is crazy to think about. But so just talking about how I thought that if I made like our front garden look nice, it would sort of change that perception, but in the midst of it, finding joy in the process of that garden, and finding like joy in just like planting things, seeing them grow. So those are the 3 essays that I wrote for Brown, and they're really short. I mean, the biggest difficulty, I think, is just making sure you fit everything in the word limit. And Mr. Cheney, who is like one of the most amazing people I know, he's like so awesome, and he works with me in Paragon. really helped me. I met with him a couple of times to just discuss writing these essays and discuss, like, you know, what he thinks of them. And like you said, like, be weird, like tell those stories, show rather than tell, like paint a picture for them in their mind, and cut the stuff that you don't need. Like, there was a bunch of sentences that I had that were like, oh yeah, colleges are going to want to hear something like this, and they were just cut that, like, you don't need it. The more you are authentically sort of describing your experience, the more that they're going to see. And I think he also helped me in the sense that for my Common App essay, I think it's important to show a bunch of aspects of your personality. So just making a list of, like, you know, how I think about myself, sort of what I enjoy, and including those moments somehow throughout an essay, just so someone gets a full picture of you from beginning to end. So those meetings with him were invaluable, but I really loved the process of writing those essays. I mean, I didn't have to write, like, you know, 20 or like 30 something like some kids do.
Yeah.
But because, I don't know, I really like writing, but it's never something that I've sort of thought about more than, like, I have to write this paper for school.
Yeah.
So this was really the first time that I wrote about myself in a way that was, like, authentic. And yeah.
In some ways, cutting it down to 650 words
Tough.
is even harder, more difficult than writing, you know, a 1,200 word essay. It's like you actually have to think about if this matters or not, to paint a picture of myself. So that's awesome. Those sound like really cool essays. Yeah, and I think the advice about keeping a notepad or keeping notes on your phone is just, it's great for a writer in general. It's like, you're not going to sit down at your keyboard at 10 o'clock and write an essay. It just doesn't work like that. Or it's not going to be fun. You know, it's fun when you have an idea about yourself or an observation that you make in the moment, and you preserve it somewhere. And I think this is kind of what I'm gathering about you a little bit with the annotations and doing this and posting certain artists next to your work, is that stuff all adds up and makes the creative process fun.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, the little things, like, especially in the creative process, about the process itself. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that I've learned over the years, is, like, the process matters so much more. I was really sort of product oriented, I guess. Like, the end product is sort of how I valued success. And that's, like, a biggest piece of advice that people just get in life, throughout life in general. So yeah, the process.
I like
finding
that.
joy in the process.
Cool, man. Well, thank you very much for your time today. It's an awesome conversation. It's great to get to know you a little bit more. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was fun for you.
Yeah, totally. I'm so excited. I was looking forward to this for so long. Big fan.
Glad that we finally got you on, and best of luck in semester 2 of your senior year.
Thank you so much, Mr. Scott. Thank you.
Thank you.